Well, what do you want to do?
I don't know. We don't have an intro. Welcome back to the Glazier Gamble podcast. I'm Michael Glazier. Just before we start with our discussion, I wanted to let you know, feel free to let us know in the comments what you'd like to see from us in the future. We do want to see what you want us to talk about, and we'd like to know what you think. So feel free to let us know now or let us know in the future in the comments what you thought about certain things. And make sure to like and subscribe to see more. Also, in terms of what you want us to talk about in those comments, feel free, if we're not covering something that you'd like to see, like underwater basket weaving,
Sure.
Or if you want to see, like, the Olympics were just on. I didn't really watch it, but if you wanted us to talk about it, I would have watched it. Maybe. But yeah, if you want to see some things, we can definitely talk about them. We have some specific things that we prefer, but we also want to provide you with the entertainment that you want to see. So, yeah, let us know in the comments what you would like from us, and we'll decide whether or not we want to give that to you. Other than that, without further dudes, let's get into it.
So, I think we should change up what we usually do. So, instead of going like NBA, NFL, Marvel, I think we should do NBA, NFL, and then Marvel.
Starting off today, we have two really quick points on the NBA. First, Thursday is today. This day is Thursday.
It's Thursday.
Kawhi Leonard signed a 4-year, $176 million contract with a player option for the 4th year. So you're assuming he's probably going to opt out and just take the 3 years.
Sure.
When you break that down, that's $46 million a year.
It's 44.
Yep. $44 million a year.
Jimmy got something similar.
He did.
So, just a quick note. Would you rather have Kawhi or Jimmy?
I'd rather have the money and invest in... I would honestly rather have 4... After watching the finals this past year, I would rather have 4 role players. Like, depending on my team. Like, so say I'm running the Timberwolves.
Okay.
If I have just Karl Anthony Towns, do I want to spend that money on Jimmy Butler or Kawhi to add to this team? Say we have room for 1 max contract, so you can assume D'Lo's not there or something like that. I would rather save that money and use it for like Ant when he gets there. Invest in a bunch of role players.
With that same exact money, you could get D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley.
Exactly. So I would rather sign a Malik Beasley and a KCP and a Jeremy Lamb. Like, I'd rather get
you wouldn't sign KCP.
No, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If I'm choosing, you have Jimmy Butler, who couldn't score 10 points in his 4 playoff games. And you have Kawhi Leonard, who, on average, misses 22 games a season.
Right.
And since we were going into that, he averages 22 games missed a season with his $44 million a year.
We broke it down.
We broke this down. So that is 730 games, or 30 geez, that is $730,000 per game, assuming he's missing 20 games or 22 games.
Okay.
Which is $183,000 a quarter.
Okay.
Which is $15,000 every minute he's on the court. Because we're assuming he's only missing 22 games.
That's assuming he's playing 48 minutes games.
That's assuming he's playing 48 minutes and he's playing 60 games. Little caveat is he's already projected to miss at least 41 games next year.
Nice.
So, because he's not going to be playing 48 million minutes, he's not going to be playing 48 minutes. He's not going to be playing 82 games.
Right.
You can really assume that that's more like $1 million at least per game that he's going to be getting. That's more like $250,000 a quarter.
And when he gets back, he's probably going to miss half of those games anyway, just from rest.
Right.
He's playing 20 games next year, maybe?
Yeah. And you're getting a guy that might not be able to make it through the playoffs. Like, Kawhi, when you need him, if you can guarantee me that Kawhi is healthy, he's probably top 5 in terms of who I would want on my team.
If the Clippers can make the playoffs without Kawhi Leonard,
yep,
would you like the? I know there was a NHL team that did this, where they held out a player that had a large amount of salary, and they activated them for the playoffs. They were healthy all year, but they didn't have the salary cap in the regular season. There's some rule that like they can.
Hockey has some interesting stuff there.
So then they brought that guy in, and he was like, just like the MVP for the team. So if the Clippers could guarantee that they make the playoffs, whatever seed it is, and Kawhi Leonard doesn't play a single minute throughout the regular season, but Kawhi Leonard in a playoff scenario can single-handedly win you games. He did it with Toronto.
Right.
So,
but he also rested a whole bunch of games before this previous season and couldn't make it through the playoffs.
Yeah. So if I was the Clippers, if I can make the playoffs without Kawhi, like if you play the 41 games he's not supposed to and you're like 30-10, just don't play him. Don't play him till the playoffs.
And then it's like, but do you want to pay somebody who you're not playing until the playoffs? Do you want to give him that much money?
If you can win the title,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd sacrifice anything to win a title.
That's true.
So,
yeah. Well, anyway,
we actually lied to them. There. I got one more NBA take after this. Right for right now.
Yeah.
I said accidentally. I was trying to say Malik Beasley, but I accidentally almost said Michael Beasley. You know where I'm going with this?
Is Michael? What you mean, Michael Beasley, who was playing?
Yeah.
Just this week.
Yeah. Oh, and he was accompanied by Kenneth Faried.
Yep.
And Emmanuel Mudiay.
Oh, so they must have been doing like some exhibition regular season.
No, they were in summer league with for the Trailblazers. So
I don't get it.
I don't understand.
They all must have not played a single minute last year.
I don't know.
That must have because like I know they changed the rules for COVID and like because it's now the G League and not the D League that there's some different rules.
Yeah.
So maybe because, like, I know Kenneth Faried might have been, like, completely out of the league, and I know Michael Beasley was because I was watching his, like, Instagram videos.
Right.
So maybe because they weren't in it, they're considered, like, they're allowed to play.
Know.
But yeah, that was weird when I mean, there's a reason why it was trending. Like, Michael Beasley, Kenneth Faried, Emmanuel Mudiay, all going up against 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. Like,
I don't know.
It was weird.
Obviously, like, you've seen, like, Michael Beasley Instagram stuff. He can hoop with, like, YMCA groups,
Second
like
overall pick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and like Michael Beasley,
he can play pickup games,
and in the summer league, I'm assuming he's gonna look good.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when Ricky Davis was trying to make that comeback when he was like 36 or something. Like when he tried to make that comeback, he was like, "Look at my tape," and Baron Davis like, "Oh, look at us, we're scoring 50 points at the Y."
Yeah,
Isaiah Thomas just dropped 81 points in the Pro-Am. Like. Just because guys are doing well against other players. So. Anyway, yeah, Michael Beasley, that was silly. Speaking of Summer League, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs,
Evan
Mobley. That's the people that everybody's been focusing on. They've all been doing pretty good. Suggs has probably been the most disappointing out of all of them, but it's not like he's doing bad.
Team.
He's on the worst team, and he's a senior, which is why he was picked 5th overall. Like, people thought that he was only doing well, similar to Michael Beasley playing against the Scrubs.
Right.
Suggs was... It's just like Buddy Hield. Like, as a senior, you look good in college.
Buddy Hield's transition to the NBA, all right, though.
Exactly. So Suggs, just like Buddy Hield, might take a couple of years because he's so set in his ways. Like, you're filling a cup that's a quarter full for some of these like guys like Cade Cunningham, but Suggs, you're trying to fill a cup that's half full.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we have one little thing of NBA news that kind of transitions us into the NFL. The NBA is going to, after the Olympics, they've decided that they're going to change up the rules to be a little bit more like international basketball. So fouls are going to be less common.
Sure.
And more fouls are going to be considered offensive, which the common ones that people see, like the people watching this, that you'll see, the ones that like James Harden is commonly known for, where he hooks, like the defender tries to go after the ball or is like sitting like this in the like wing stance, and Harden hooks his arm underneath. Paul George does it quite a bit, and then shoots.
Right.
And that's called a foul because like the
defender. That's when he's like driving.
It's usually like a step, Like during, like, it's almost like a step back or a side step, because most of them are occurred at the 3-point line. It's a quick way to get 3 free throws.
Right. I know they used to have like the when the defender's like this or whatever, they just rip through the arm really quick.
Yeah.
Used to have that too.
So now that is an offensive foul.
Right.
And then the one that was already there, but now it's going to be enforced for some reason hasn't been enforced, is now if the offensive player kicks their feet out and causes the defensive player to basically get hit in any way, get fallen in any way, that's an offensive foul, because and all of these changes are if the defensive player can't make the play or if it obstructs the defensive player from trying to make a play.
Right, and I guess I agree with that, because if there's an open space on the court, the defensive player has the same right to that spot as an offensive player. So it's
I think you're going to see some guys that are affected. Not a ton, but you'll see some. I think that Trae Young is going to have to adjust what he does, because he relies a lot on free throws.
Yeah.
But really, if he does what Jason Kidd does, takes 300 shots a day and just makes his shooting similar to how he was in college, like he doesn't need those free throws anymore. Sure. So I think Trae has the potential to do it. We know Harden can shoot. He's just using the system to get easier points. Yeah. So I think Harden and Trae, like everybody was talking about how Harden's dropping to 18 a game. Yeah. Like, no, Harden now he might even score more because he's going to shoot more without free throws. It's just, it's similar to anyone manipulating the rules in any way. Like if the rule is, it's like taxes, like Amazon not paying taxes. Right. You can get mad at Amazon, but they're using a system that's in place. Right. Like you can get mad at James Harden for causing offensive fouls. Sure. But
developing that, like,
crab weird step hop, whatever it is. Yeah, his back step that he spent with.
Not everyone does that.
Yeah, and that was started with the And One street ball team with the professor and those guys. So, you can't get mad at them for using a system that's not there. Now that the system's not there, they'll find something else to manipulate, or they'll just show you, like, yeah, I've been good this whole time. I've just been using the easy stuff.
Sure.
But the reason that we say that we're transitioning that to the NFL is because I wanted to know if there were any rules in the NFL that you would implement or change. Like, if there's any rules.
We were talking about this earlier. You've got 2.
Yeah.
I've got I agree with you on one of them, and then I kind of have the other side of it for the other one. So go ahead.
So the first one that I thought of, because the 2 that I thought jumped into my head right away. The first one that I thought of was one that I've always kind of agreed with, but it's one that I hear a lot of ex-players have. So, like, I know Ben Lieber has talked about this before, and, like, LeVar Arrington, a couple other guys, which I know that those guys are a little more old school, so maybe that's why a lot of people disagree with this take. I think the defensive pass interference should only be a 15-yard penalty and not spot of the ball, because... I mean, the idea of... Because I think it was, on average, pass interference ends up being like a 23-yard penalty. So on average, you're getting 8 yards more, so you would reduce less. Like, it'd probably reduce scoring a little bit, which fans don't want, but it's really only 8 yards.
What do you mean reduce scoring? Did you not see the Cowboys-Steelers game? Was it Cowboys-Steelers?
Where it was like 18 to whatever.
16 to 3.
The preseason game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
Less offense. You just put those teams out there.
Yeah. Or, you can go put out the Bengals if Joe Burrow can't go.
The Steelers, if they had Big Ben, they would have had the same amount of points. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I think 15 yards is not that bad. So, however...
the only issue I had with this was if a DB is getting beat, like for sure, there's a teardrop pass. The wide receiver is going to catch it.
Right, you have D-hop on a streak, then you just missed him.
Yeah, you didn't press. He just blew right by you. Now, all of a sudden, you could just dive and trip him. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, it's a 15-yard penalty as opposed to a touchdown.
Well, we just talked about people manipulating the system for a rule. That's one thing. Like, I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it. I agree. I think that you'd see that. I think you'd have to give it a test and see how it goes for 1 year. But if it is something that's successful and it's something they want to see but they want to tweak, you could always make it where if it's an intentional, you can change it between intentional pass interference and defensive pass interference. So you have different degrees of pass interference. Intentional, spot of the ball. pass interference where it was just two guys fighting for the ball and one guy hits his other arm, that's 15 yards. Yeah, and if it's just like illegal contact, then it's still like they have the 5-yard illegal contact in, I think it's college, where it's like a 5-yard. Like
once you pass the 5 yards, which is.
And college right now, defense passing yards is 15 yards, and you don't really see that issue, but you also don't have vets that would know how to manipulate it. So I'd agree. I think people would manipulate it, but that was the first one that jumped to my head. And the other one that I've had issues with since I was probably like first started watching football, I've never understood it. Offsides on defense is 5 yards.
Right.
Holding is 10 yards.
Right.
And then holding on defense is an automatic first down.
Right.
So I think holding on offense should be a 5-yard penalty. Not only can you call it every play because there's holding somewhere.
Right.
But 10 yards is like to have a team go from 1st and 10 to 1st and 20 because you pulled the jersey a little bit.
Yeah.
The sack was probably going to be 5 yards.
I agree with that 100% because there's some teams that average like right on like 4.5 yards on their first play. Like that's like an average run, like your first play. So like if you have a sudden 1st and 10, your right tackle holds.
Yep.
Right? So it's 1st and 15. If you have your running back go when he gets 4.5 yards, you're right at 2nd and 10. It's like your first play never happened.
Right.
So it's easy to make that up, but getting 10 yards is not
and for
easy.
such a common penalty, you're treating the common penalty as if it's something that you should be like harshly punished for.
Yeah.
When, I mean, that's only 5 yards less than a personal foul.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the most common
I agree.
penalty in the game is 5 yards less than a personal foul.
Yeah.
So
You might as well just crack their
right. You might as well commit a personal foul because you're either way you're not losing a down.
Right.
And you're basically losing the same amount of yardage. Yeah. And sometimes it's personal fouls are spot of the ball.
Yeah.
So you might lose less yards than a holding.
Yeah.
So I think that's dumb. That would be the two biggest ones. I think after talking with you about the pass interference, they would have to test it out first.
Yeah.
But I think they could implement that holding one, and it would make the league better. And losing only 5 yards, better for the offense, better for the league. I would like to move on. There was so again, we record this on Thursdays. Just this week, Hall of Fame inductees went in.
Sure.
I had a couple of my favorites. I won't go over them all. There was a couple of guys that haven't been in it for a while that have like deserved it. Like there was a Cowboys wide receiver, he deserved it. That he's been every year. It's like, oh, why isn't he not in? Why isn't he was in? But the two that I was like happiest about were Peyton Manning, Troy Polamalu. Troy Polamalu, because for those who don't know, he's my favorite player in the history of football.
I was.
Well, it's Joe, and then it's Troy Polamalu, and then it's Mwelde Moore.
Got it.
Which Mwelde Moore is like my throw the wrench in it. Like, why is he your favorite? Yeah. Well, that's because I just like him a lot. But he's who I saw when I played football. I saw myself in Mwelde, so I was like, okay, I like him. But Troy Polamalu is my favorite player ever for football, and he was in the Hall of Fame now. Super awesome. Yeah. I'm so excited. Very happy for him. And the funniest thing about Hall of Fame weekend was somebody was caught on a hot mic saying, one of the guys that was wearing a gold jacket said, "Let's go smoke a joint in the parking lot, celebrate." I think that's like, these guys are like 70, and just the idea of these guys like partying with a joint. Especially, like, I know Peyton probably isn't one of them, but like Peyton Manning, the idea of Peyton Manning smoking a joint.
Broncos, Colorado.
Right. But Jay Glazer, if you guys didn't see, go ahead and watch it. Pat McAfee this past week after the Hall of Fame happened, he interviewed Jay Glazer. Jay Glazer went out partying with those guys after and told some awesome stories on Pat McAfee. So feel free to watch that. I watched the whole interview. It was awesome. He had some really funny stories, especially with like him and John Lynch. So it was good. I'd go watch it if I were you. But next year, the inductees, the big name inductees are Steve Smith Sr., Andre Johnson, Tony Romo, DeMarcus Ware, Anquan Boldin, and Vince Wilfork. I have some thoughts on a couple of these guys because a lot of people on the internet are saying they're all first ballots.
Okay.
I disagree a lot. I don't know what you think. I'd like to hear what you think first, to be honest.
Read that.
So, Steve Smith Sr.,
Okay.
Andre Johnson,
Okay.
Tony Romo, DeMarcus Ware, Anquan Bolden, and Vince Wilfork.
The one that stands out to me the most is Anquan. And that's because he had a lot of rookie records were Anquan's.
Yep.
So that's the name that stands out to me.
Anquan.
Yeah, and plus that was the most recognizable thing. Yeah, so Anquan Bolden stands out to me. Read the other ones.
Steve Smith Sr., Andre Johnson, Tony Romo, DeMarcus Ware, Vince Wilfork.
Who'd be next?
So you think Anquan Bolden's the best out of all those players, is what you're saying? Like the most.
DeMarcus Ware had a really good run.
Okay. Because I know who I would rank up top, and you are going in another direction.
Am I?
Yep, for me, compared to what I thought.
And then...
Because I thought of, like, who's the best players of those people. Like, who their whole career, rookie year to final year, who is the best career. Because that's, in my opinion, that's a first ballot. Like, most of these guys, or all of these guys, probably get in at some point.
Who do you say?
So I think the first ballots are DeMarcus Ware and Steve Smith Sr.
Okay.
And I honestly am not sure if anybody else would be.
Yeah,
if I had another person to potentially be, it would be Andre Johnson.
Yeah, Andre Johnson, I was thinking too, because he was like the best wide receiver.
And he beat the living crap out of Cortland Finnegan.
Yeah.
So, who in multiple... So Brandon Marshall, TJ Hushmanzada, and a couple other wide receivers that come out, and they were asked, who was the dirtiest player you ever went against? All of them said Cortland Finnegan.
Yeah.
So, not surprising. But yeah, I thought... So, first person that jumped, I was like, DeMarcus Ware. I think DeMarcus Ware is the first ballot Hall of Fame out of all those guys.
I think Bolden probably is just the freshest on my mind because of Justin Jefferson's rookie record.
Sure.
And so, like, I heard a lot of Anquan last.
And I remember Anquan Bolden being good on it was like Cardinals, Ravens, like he was good on multiple teams. So I agree. When I think Anquan Bolden, I don't think.
Well, and what's tough is Romo for me, because this year was headlined by Peyton Manning.
Right.
And so you're going from Peyton Manning to Tony Romo.
And then you think, Drew Brees just retired.
There's a gap.
Yeah. Yep. And there's not just a gap. Like there's the Grand Canyon.
There's a gap, and then there's Peyton Manning is like above elite.
Right. Yep.
Right. Then there's a gap, and then there's the elite quarterbacks, and then there's a gap, and there's the kind of elite quarterbacks, and then there's Tony Romo.
Right. Like Peyton Manning is with Tom Brady and Joe Montana, and like maybe Drew Brees is up there, but then there's a gap, and then it's the Steve Youngs. Some of the I don't want to upset people. Yeah. So like Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, those types of guys.
John Unitas, Dan Marino.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have a gap, and then it's like very good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And then it's a gap, and then it's Tony Romo, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Tony Romo should be included.
I don't even know if Tony Romo to me would be a second ballot or third ballot. I don't know how many they get, but Tony Romo would be one of those guys that he would be near.
That's much.
No, I didn't, but it's your eyesight, so it's much more noticeable for you. But yeah,
Tony Romo. I mean, we were just talking about it, and we didn't talk about Tony Romo at all.
And I think Vince Wilfork was he was a dominating defensive lineman, but I don't think he's a first ballot.
Yeah.
Obviously, these guys would all demolish me or like the average person in football. Right. I'm not being somebody who wasn't a pro player. I'm not saying these guys.
I don't know. Good. I think you could in your prime, not mine. You could probably catch Tony Romo.
You mean running?
Yeah.
Oh, I would. I was faster than Tony Romo.
Yeah. So
I was gonna say I was state and track. I'm faster than Tony Romo, but those other guys would. Vince Wilfork, I might be faster than, but he'd destroy me if I tried to do an Oklahoma drill. Yeah. Steve Smith Sr. would sun me.
Yeah.
Andre Johnson would sun me, but Anquan Bolts, DeMarcus Ware would probably destroy my head, take it off. But all these guys, terrific, probably will make the Hall of Fame at some point. Tony Romo, I think, gets helped by his casting and his personality. He's trying to become a PGA golfer. Could you imagine being a Hall of Fame football player and becoming a PGA Tour? I just don't think he's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There was a lot of arguments of whether Phillip Rivers should be in the Hall of Fame. Phillip Rivers was better than Tony Romo.
Yeah. 100%.
And if you want to argue that, go ahead. I don't think there's an argument for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if people are saying Phillip Rivers can't be in the Hall of Fame or shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, Tony Romo shouldn't even sniff it.
Yeah.
However, I think Steve Smith Sr., DeMarcus Ware, and Andre Johnson all have the best arguments for first ballot. I just think if you were to pick one of those guys to be first ballot, DeMarcus Ware. Out of those guys, who was my favorite player to watch, it was Steve Smith Sr. Interviews, he was hilarious, and on the field. And yeah, that's it for Hall of Fame.
Now, and saying their names. Like, who had the best, name? Exactly.
Yeah, it was definitely, yeah.
So, and if he gets inducted and they don't say it like that, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, whoever announces it for him should say it that way. Couple other quick NFL news. Alex Smith was hired by ESPN. Congratulations. Great football player. He'll be great analyst. He's very smart. So, other than that, there were some big contracts. Josh Allen got the highest quarterback contract for guaranteed money. He has the most guaranteed money in NFL history.
Sure.
$2 million a year less than Mahomes, I think, overall, but more money guaranteed than Mahomes.
Yeah.
Darius Leonard is the highest paid linebacker now. Quick little story for those of you that didn't see it. Darius Leonard and Fred Warner sent each other their jerseys this offseason because they weren't allowed to do swaps. And Darius Leonard told Fred Warner that they were the two best linebackers in football. I disagree with that. I think they're both terrific players.
Right.
If you want to say the two best linebackers that have been in the league less than 5 years, I would say Devin White would like to argue with you, but you're probably correct that it's those two. I'm not sure how long Deion...
1A, 1B, 1C,
I don't know if Deion Jones has hit that 5-year mark, but out of the... I would take Darius Leonard, then Deion before Fred Warner, if he hasn't been, and Devin White could also argue there, so... Darius Leonard, I think, is the best young linebacker, and if you want to count Kendricks as young still, I think Kendricks is the most underrated. So,
or something.
8?
No.
But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Along with NFL, preseason happened. First, the Hall of Fame game happened. It was very terrible. We mentioned the offense was bad. The best quarterback in there was Josh Dobbs. For those of you that followed me on my mock drafts 6 years ago, which is 0 people, Josh Dobbs is somebody I thought would be a great backup. I thought he was going to become potentially the best backup in football. He ended up getting cut, and then he was back, and now he's back on the team. Josh Dobbs needs to keep getting chances, but he is a good backup. So, in my opinion, Ben Roethlisberger wanted Dobbs gone because he didn't want competition. Dobbs, I don't think, is a starter, but he did well in the Hall of Fame game, and I think he should be a backup. He's better than a lot of backups.
Sure.
So
as of right now, on Thursday Night Football, the Eagles are up on the Steelers with about a minute left. They're up 13-7.
Still low scoring.
Yep. And then the Patriots are up on the football team with about a minute left, but the football team is in the red zone.
A minute left in the fourth?
In the first half for both games.
Okay, and so if you extrapolate, it'd be 26-14 and potentially 14-12.
Yeah. So
still low scoring games. It's preseason.
It's there's second and third stringers. It's not
right. Which, as somebody who plays Madden to build teams, who likes college football as much or more than NFL football, I love watching the second and third stringers. I love preseason.
Yeah.
My dad.
We saw Kyle Sloter.
Yeah.
Just rip it.
Taylor Heineke when he was on the Vikings, we thought was going to be
a football team now.
Yeah, and he almost beat the Bucks.
Yeah.
But, their defense almost beat the Bucks, but still. NFL preseason's going on, not really exciting. And if your favorite team is playing, this is when you try to find out those players, your next favorite player on your favorite team. This is when you figure those guys out. That's what the preseason is for.
I think it's much like NBA Summer League going on. We know who our stars are for the teams, but it's nice watching, a Jalen Noel or, Jaden McDaniels, Nathan Knight.
And a cynical way of viewing it is this is the last time these guys are playing for football.
Yeah.
After they make the roster, those guys are playing for money after that. Mm-hmm. From a cynical standpoint, that's why I like college sports so much. They're playing for the love of the game and try to get to that money.
Yeah.
But these guys, this is their last time that they're playing to get on a roster.
Yeah, so, like, I guess the exciting part for me is for, say, the Vikings, we're from Minnesota, we know who our number 1 and number 2 wide receivers are.
Yep.
They're not going to play. We think we know who the wide receiver 3 is for the Vikings, but we don't know 4, 5, and 6. So now you got a bunch of guys playing for position 4, 5, and 6.
Right, which
including
could be
rookies, undrafteds.
And wide receiver 4, 5, and 6 could be the difference between a first down catch in a playoff game.
Yeah.
And, like, that one catch could be, do you want Amir Smith-Marset making that first down catch in the playoffs, or do you want Chad Beebe to be the one that we want to try catching? Yeah. I know who I'd rather have at wide receiver 4, but
BC.
Preseason, this is when you figure out your next favorite player. So watch your team if you want, but really, if you don't, wait till the regular season.
Danielle Hunter started here, and now he's arguably our best defensive player.
This is when we saw Cam Dantzler last year, and it's like, oh, he might be something. So.
Yeah. I feel like we had another corner, but I can't remember his name.
This also when the Packers fell in love with Blake Martinez.
Yeah.
Was the preseason, and then he ended up leading their team in tackles and then getting cut. But yeah, our overall opinion of the preseason was bleh.
Yeah.
So
the first game, this looks like these next two are bleh. But...
Also bleh.
Yeah.
There are a couple good matchups, but whatever.
I think it's week 3. Week 3 or 4 is when you get the starters.
Right. Well, they don't have 4 weeks preseason. It's only 3 this year.
3 weeks of so you'll see the starters in the game 3.
But speaking of regular seasons, we wanted to do a quick prediction of where we think the divisions are going to end up for football. Just a heads up, they are spicy. Okay. But these are spicy. These are spicy. So we're going to start, as we usually do, with the NFC North.
Sure. So we got to this scenario. I'll look it up. When we got to this spot, there's a lot of teams that were kind of tied, right? And we were like, all right, one team's probably better, but for the sake of this prediction thing, we chose the spicier take.
Little heads up. Every year, 4 to 5 playoff teams don't make the playoffs next year, and vice versa. So even though this is a spicy pick, and you might disagree with us,
okay,
I think, we're taking some potential surprises into effect here. So
sure.
As always, start with the NFC North.
Okay. Packers, right?
No.
Oh.
We said that it'll go Vikings,
okay,
Packers, Bears, Lions.
Yeah, that sounds accurate.
So out of the last 10 division winners, it's been Bears once, Vikings 2 or 3 times, and everyone else been the Packers. So I get when people want the Packers, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go nuts this year.
Right.
But
you think both of those teams make the playoffs?
Vikings and Packers?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, Packers fans, I still think the Packers will make the playoffs. But I think the Vikings are going to have a better record because they had the second most amount of, I think it was starters that sat out of COVID. And they had multiple changes this year. The O-line's completely different. If you view that as a negative, then you also shouldn't think the Chiefs are going to be good because they have 5 new starters this year. So they upgraded the O-line, which has been the issue every year. And they have officially, gotten a bunch of players. Danielle Hunter's back. Michael Pierce is back. Dalvin Tomlinson's added. Patrick Peterson's added.
Also, a little news from either yesterday's joint practice or today's joint practice. Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson were eating the interior of the Denver Broncos O-line.
But the fact that it's the Denver Broncos and practice, I'm not as excited, but that should be
that should happen.
They are one of the best tandems on paper at defensive tackle. I'm excited for it. I think the Packers, if anybody's going to beat the Vikings for number 1, I think it's the Packers. Obviously. And if Justin Fields plays all 16 games, the Bears have a very good chance of being number 1 in the division. It wasn't an easy choice, but I think Vikings are going to do it. NFC South. We went Panthers. We went the Bucks. Then we said Falcons, Panthers, Saints last. That's another spicy thing.
Right.
But with Taysom Hill as your starting quarterback, losing Trey Hendrickson, And when Taysom Hill's not in there, it's going to be Jameis.
Michael Thomas might not even play.
Michael Thomas is already going to be out. I think it was 6 games or 8 games.
If we swore profusely on these videos, we would have probably a vulgarity to say about Michael Thomas, and it would probably start with little.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Michael Thomas. I wanted the Vikings to draft him instead of Laquan Treadwell.
Okay.
He was my number 1 wide receiver that year. I, coming out of college, loved him.
What's your take on divas, though? Because
I just like Diggs. I love Diggs, but as soon as you start acting up, obviously you need to get out of there because it's going to start Percy Harvin. Like, you got to get out. Otherwise, you're going to affect people. So I think Michael Thomas, it's clear, like him and Sean Payton. Ian Rappaport was very open about him and Sean Payton and Michael Thomas being, like, aggressive, like, not good communication. So, yeah, Michael Thomas, like, that whole situation is difficult for the Saints. So if they do overcome it, obviously I do think they could do better than the Panthers. I think Sam Darnold's trying to prove something. CMC's trying to prove something. DJ Moore's trying to prove he's a number 1. Like, they have a lot of guys that are going to be trying.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to beat out the dysfunction of the Saints.
Sure.
And then Bucks, because we should know, we don't have to explain that.
22 starters are back, so.
And Falcons, I just think they're better than what they are. And I think they're going to...
I think they could always be better than what they are.
So I think maybe this is their year to take second in their division.
Yeah.
NFC least, we have the football team creating some magic and getting the first place in their division.
Getting the Fitz place?
Yeah. They're performing some magic into Fitz place.
Yeah.
And Cowboys, so behind the scenes we were discussing this. I wanted the Giants second. You convinced me. If Dak's healthy, the Cowboys should be first or second.
Yeah.
But with a second MRI, and honestly, their offensive line is just dwindling.
Yeah.
And their defense is really not that great. And I think Micah Parsons, while he was my favorite defensive player in the draft, obviously I thought Pat Surtain was the best player in the draft. Micah was my favorite defensive player in the draft. I think he's going to get taken advantage of because he's a playmaker. And if he can learn to stay in the right spots, and they always said, when I was in football, the coaches always said, stay home. He needs to learn to, like, stay home and not always go for the play.
My coaches always told me to stay home, too.
They always said stay home, like, because I always wanted to make a play. I wanted to get this. If I'm blitzing, I want to blitz. And it's like, yeah, but sometimes you might run right by the O-line because they pulled, and you completely have to chase.
So, like, when you were returning kicks in school, you didn't want to have to run sideways and hand it off to the other returner.
No.
You wanted to, like, run forward on the kick return.
Or when my coach told me it's an onside kick, you don't need to return it, just fall on it, and instead I picked it up and ran it for a touchdown. Yeah, I like to make plays. But yeah, so I think if Micah Parsons learns to stay home and find it, I think Cowboys will be better than the football team. But the football team has the best defense in the division and maybe a top 3 defense in football.
Yeah, they got playmakers on offense, too.
And their D-line is nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like the football team, and I think Fitzpatrick, this is the best team he's ever played for.
Yeah.
So
outside of maybe, like, early Bills.
Right. If he can't get it done with this team, this is his last little hurrah. But
he's got like 20 other teams he still has to play for. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I really hope they do.
I'm sure for the football team.
Not only am I rooting for them, but I think they're going to do it.
No, we haven't done any like Madden content or whatever, but I know that with my most recent season of Madden 21 that I played, I did a franchise mode with the football team. So
it's fun. I love doing that sort of thing. And Fitzpatrick, rooting for him, so I hope it goes well. And he's a really
there was
good
one
bowler.
season like through six games, he was like number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, and then he does what he does and kind of goes the other way. This one is the hardest. It's currently the most varied betted on.
This is a tough one.
Division. It was the hardest one for us to do, but also the spiciest one we did.
I think over the last 4 years, all the teams have made the playoffs.
So the NFC West.
Okay.
Number 1, we chose the Arizona Cardinals.
Right. This was a really close one.
I believe they are the 4th favorite for betting. odds
Okay.
in the division, but we picked them first. So if this is betting, we would be making lots of money.
Yep.
However, this is not gambling advice. Cardinals. Then we said Rams. Then we said Niners, and then Seahawks.
Right.
I think this is the year that Russell Wilson gets overcome
Can't
by
do it
getting.
all.
Yeah, he can't do it all.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf, they figured him out.
I said this. I said
He's still amazing,
Like
but-
the Seahawks can only go as far as Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf can take them.
And Russell Wilson can go about as far as a 2-step drop.
Yeah.
So the Seahawks, I think this is the year where they take a big hit, even though they are really talented. I think this is the year that you see similar, like what we said, that there's a lot of variation in the NFL, and I think the Seahawks are one of those teams we're going to see fall off.
The Seahawks have to go up against Aaron Donald twice. Niners always have a good defense. And then you have J.J. Watt and possibly Chandler Jones. You've got the...
Right. Maybe not Chandler, but we'll see. And they got rid of Patrick Peterson, but they replaced him. They didn't really want Patrick Peterson anymore. We'll see. I think the offense, the Cardinals are going to be in shootouts, but because of how good they are on offense... Yeah. The Rams are the team I question. I think the Rams... have a really good chance.
we get to see. We've always said that Stafford could. What could Stafford do in a good situation, and now he's in a good situation.
Exactly.
So,
if you're assuming Stafford is as good as he was on the Lions, stats wise, the Rams are going to be, Super Bowl favorites.
Right.
But we'll see. I think Cardinals. This is their year to bounce forward. Onto the AFC North, probably the easiest division. There was the two teams in the middle.
Bucks was probably the easiest.
Bucks probably NFC South, but AFC North we said Titans, Jags, Colts, Texans. You can make an argument Colts because the Jags are so young instead of the Colts second, but Jacob Eason and Sam Ellinger are your quarterbacks. Gonna be hard. Their offensive line is I wish we had it. Their running back is incredible. Their wide receivers and tight ends are above average, but not anything like T.Y. Hilton. I don't know.
I like Mo Alley Cox.
Right, and I like Rocky Sin, and I like Darius Leonard a lot. Yeah. So, and they have Buckner. So they have a really good team. It's all about the quarterback though. And if you're assuming Trevor Lawrence is the number one overall quarterback talent wise,
and look wise,
and you can assume that their head coach knows what he's doing in the NFL. Yeah. So let's see what he can do. Let's see if Urban Meyer can do it. I still think the Titans, Julio, Titans are the best in that. It's their
87 overall.
It's theirs to lose. Yeah. AFC South. AFC South.
What does that one stand for? ANC?
The American National Football South.
Got it.
Conference South. Yeah. We said Browns, Bengals, Steelers. Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. Yeah. Browns, Bengals. People immediately click off. Well, Browns, Bengals. Get this out of here. No, Browns, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers.
Sure. And I think the Steelers drop is warranted just because they were quite possibly the worst 11-0 team in NFL history.
Right, this team was 11-0. Yeah, and then they ended 12-4.
Yeah.
And the Ravens are the only reason we put the Browns ahead of the Ravens is because you don't know if Lamar's going to be able to play.
But at the same time, we did put the Vikings over the Packers.
Right,
so
and
that's our bias showing.
It is our bias showing. But
we have a censor on it.
My big thing is Lamar might not be able to play every game because he might have to go through COVID protocols, and you just never know. However, Lamar's in a contract year, so he's going to be playing insane, and they gave him some weapons, and their defense is still awesome. Their coach is incredible. It's Browns and Ravens going back and forth.
Yep.
If Joe Burrow, which he said he doesn't feel that great on his knee still, if Joe Burrow comes in and does well, I think the Bengals surpass the Steelers, and the Steelers take a huge drop. The AFC East. Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets.
This one had a clear number one.
Number one. I thought Patriots should have been second. You thought Dolphins should be second. I think you can make an argument for both. I just think the Dolphins, Tua's going to show that he's not it. Yeah. And I think the Patriots are going to take that jump forward considering they spent the most amount of money on free agents in NFL history. But then I think the Jets are definitely last.
Yeah.
The Jets do have the best quarterback with the last name Wilson, though.
Yeah. You can't think of another one.
I can't even think of one who I would definitely not want on my team.
Yeah.
AFC West. This one
number one.
also probably the easiest four. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos.
Yeah.
Chargers, everybody expects to make a playoff run. They have a new head coach, which is the only big thing. If Herbert takes a jump forward, if Eckler keeps doing his thing, if Mike Williams is still good, like
Keenan Allen.
The Chargers and the Chiefs are obvious top two. Chiefs should be favorites until they're bad, which they aren't. So
it could be in like 10 years.
That's our predictions. Division winners: Vikings, Bucks, football team, Cardinals, Titans, Browns, Bills, Chiefs. I love the sound of those playoffs.
Yeah.
With the wild card probably being like Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Ravens, Chargers, maybe something like Ravens.
No, one more. 7 teams.
Dolphins then.
Sure.
Yeah. There you go. So, and that's it for NFL. That's it for sports. We have, we still have fantasy football. We're going to cover fantasy football. We've had a couple people ask for fantasy football. So, we're going to do our top 3 players from every position. The first
who do you think fantasy-wise?
Fantasy football, who would you pick in the draft? Who would we pick in the draft?
So before we get into these ratings, we don't play in a PPR league.
No, we play touchdown league.
We play touchdowns. So I think it's 4 points for a passing touchdown. We do something like every 25 yards passing is a point.
Yep.
So if you have 100 yards and a touchdown,
and there's no negative points.
Yep. And then for running, it's every 10 yards is a point, which is standard in some leagues. And then a touchdown is 6 points.
We have no decimal, half points, 0.2. We have nothing like that, and we have no negative points.
Yeah.
So defense, it's like sack and fumble recovery is a point, but quarterback throws an interception, they don't lose a point.
Sure.
Quarterbacks.
We just have quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end.
Right. So quarterback, we have Mahomes, Rodgers, and then we have a little pair. Like we try to do a quarterback, and you pair it with a wide receiver. We said Josh Allen and Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
We're both leaning more towards Kyler over Josh Allen for that third slot. I think Aaron Rodgers is looking to prove something, so I think he might even be the highest scoring quarterback. I had him last year. He worked great for me.
I guess I had Devontae Adams last year, and he worked great for me. So.
And Mahomes will be everybody's number 1 QB, unless you're in like the Northeast, you're in the United States, who might have Josh Allen.
You have no points for passing, and you're going to take Lamar or Kyler or Josh Allen or something like that.
Right.
So.
But I think Kyler Murray should be third. So Mahomes, Rodgers, Kyler, and then Allen would be our official.
Yeah, I think our basis for this was, and we'll get into it when we get to the wide receivers, but if you have Stephon Diggs on your team, you're going to want to take Josh Allen. And if you have DeAndre Hopkins on your team, you want to take Kyler Murray and vice versa. So they're kind of like 3A and 3B.
Exactly. Running backs, we had Kamara, Henry, and Cook. CMC is like the overall, everybody's rating CMC as number 1. We had a comment in our previous video. They asked us, we responded that we would probably take CMC. It's just hard to think that he's going to be able to play the whole time. And it's also, you don't know if the Panthers are going to be able to do, like, Darnold's going to want to throw.
Right.
So CMC is going to have a good amount of receiving yards. It's just, it's not necessarily that CMC isn't the best. It's just Derrick Henry is a touchdown machine. Even if he doesn't get his yards, he scores touchdowns. Dalvin Cook, touchdown machine.
Yeah.
And not only is Kamara also a touchdown machine, Cook and Kamara are also heavily used in the pass game, and Kamara has no Michael Thomas and a quarterback who really isn't a good thrower.
Right.
So Kamara is our number 1 because I think he's just 35 touches a game. He's going to be insane. Yeah. Derrick Henry because he's Derrick Henry.
He was running back 1 last year.
And Dalvin Cook because
he was running back 2 last year.
He was running back 2 last year. He finally played a full season almost. And
he was running back 2 and he missed 2 games.
So, and then CMC is our 4th. So, yes, CMC is a great choice. If you take him number 1 overall, you're probably not going to be mad. But I think the 3 we listed will have better seasons. Wide receivers. Wide receiver 1 last year, 2 last year, same as ours we have this year. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Devontae Adams probably going to have another year of 10-plus TDs. Tyreek Hill probably 10-plus TDs.
Yeah.
You're going to want to go the Mahomes-Tyreek combo, the Rodgers-Adams combo. And then your third wide receiver, we said either DeAndre Hopkins or Diggs. That's back to that. If you have Josh Allen on your team, you try to go for Diggs. If Diggs isn't there, you'd rather get get D-Hop.
But if you have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins is gone, take Diggs.
Then exactly. Yeah. And then the easiest position was tight end.
Tight end. You could just easy. We have Mike Gesicki,
David Andrews, and Kyle Rudolph.
We have Kyle Rudolph still in 82 in Madden.
Blocking. So we have
Travis Kelce.
Yep.
Yep. George Kittle and then
Kittley.
and then Darren Waller.
Can't read it. I thought you had trouble reading it. It said Walker or something. But yeah, Kelsey, Kittle, Waller. Those are the obvious three. Go ahead and make arguments for Kittle and Gesicki. Like you mentioned them as.
But Mark Andrews, I think, would be tight end 4.
That's what I meant, Andrews. But I think the top 3 are obvious and will be the top 3 for sure.
Yeah, they should be.
But we are going to move on to local news, which we don't have much of. But Teddy, the Broncos are practicing with the Vikings.
Yep, joint practices. We
and
played them on Saturday.
Teddy Bridgewater is back in Minnesota. Welcome back, Teddy. He was loved in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I saw somebody make a joke because Von Miller loves the Skull chant, so we started the Skull chant in practice today, and he did the whole thing. Yeah. And people were like, Von Miller is a free agent after this year, like making jokes at Von Miller coming to Minnesota. And then a Broncos fan was like, would you do Von Miller and Teddy Bridgewater for Kirk Cousins?
No.
And there was a lot of Vikings fans that said, sign me up now, but like tons of Vikings fans saying yes. And I'm like, Vikings fans hate Kirk Cousins so much. Like Von Miller's a 30-plus outside linebacker, edge rusher.
Doesn't play full season.
Versus a starting quarterback that's been proven. Like, look what happened with the Bears. They had Khalil Mack, but they had Trubisky. We would be the Bears. We have Von Miller and Daniil Hunter, but we have Teddy Bridgewater.
Von Miller's not Khalil Mack either.
So I get it was like a joke, but Teddy's back. You can stay on the Broncos. Yeah. I've always said it ever since Teddy was drafted. He is going to be a terrific coach if he chooses to be one. But he's just not a star player.
Yeah.
And the last thing was the initial depth chart for the Vikings came out. The only surprises I saw were Rashad Hill at left tackle and Nick Vigil at the will linebacker position.
Nick Vigil's playing really good.
So if you were paying attention to the training camp news, that shouldn't have been a surprise. I didn't hear a lot about the Nick Vigil stuff, so that's why it was surprising to me. But
right, yeah, I mean he's played well,
and he has history with Zimmer.
Yeah.
And, the big thing is
we assumed Oli Udoh has been blown up at practice.
So
as long as you could put like a cardboard cutout over there, and it would be better than Dakota Dozier.
Yeah.
So good for Oli Udoh. He's a big dude.
He's huge
to move around. He's a hard guy to move around. And maybe it's not Wyatt Davis' turn yet.
Wyatt Davis is a rookie. You can't expect him to be good. And Wyatt Davis has history at center, so maybe if they're... I mean, Bradbury and Brian O'Neill are really close friends.
Yeah.
And
the problem with Bradbury and why he kind of looks exposed is because he hasn't had guards.
No. He had a rookie last year and Dakota Dozier.
Yeah.
So now with like Ole Udoh, who's huge.
Yeah.
Ezra's
moving to his...
natural position.
Well, I mean, he's a left guard.
Right.
But he played left tackle.
He's better at the left side.
Yeah.
And, Wyatt Davis, he'll get his time in there. He'll get there. If Ole Udoh turns out to be good and Ezra turns out to be good, then we have Wyatt Davis in the back.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you want that? The Rashad Hill at left tackle, I think, is just temporary because...
they're playing it safe with Darisaw. They want him
Darisaw had surgery.
Yeah, he had a groin injury.
Core muscle.
Okay, yeah, well... He's got to rehab, and they're easing him into things.
So he can't start. But it's also the left tackle position. So eventually he's going to have to get out there because your left tackle needs as much reps as possible.
And I think it's going to be and how horrible would this be? You know who Brian O'Neill replaced on the right side when he got hurt?
Who?
Rashad Hill. I'm pretty sure.
Rashad Hill gets replaced.
Brian Hill came in and that was his job from then on.
Yeah.
So it could happen again. It could happen again. And outside of Ole Udoh, KJ Osborne was the
See,
everyone was questioning that, but then it was like, yeah, okay.
We talked about it last episode. KJ Osborne is locked in wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
And some people were surprised that Bashad Breeland was corner 2.
Yeah.
You didn't bring him in.
Yeah, you didn't pay him
to be
$4.5 million. Or whatever.
To be corner 4.
Yeah.
Like, Breeland is going to be slot with McKenzie, or he's going to be corner 2.
Yeah, McKenzie's going to be slot. It's going to be Pt1 and Breeland, and then whenever those guys need some run,
and Harry's only our really good safety.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised to see some of these guys just run a one high safety, and then we have a bunch of corners out there. So Breeland, Dantzler, Patty P, McKenzie are all out there.
Yeah, Xavier Woods.
Xavier Woods wasn't given a ton of money.
Yeah.
For a safety wise, and he might not. So I wasn't too. The only ones I was surprised on were Vigil and Udo. Everything else, or not Udo, Hill. Everything else, if you were paying attention to news in training camp, is what we've been hearing. Amir isn't developing quite yet, but he's a rookie. KJ's been killing it. He's fast. I saw some people were saying Kenne is going to be running back too.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. He's going to replace Abdullah.
Yeah, he's going to come in for special packages, and he's going to run really fast.
Right.
Amir Smith-Marset is going to come in for special packages, and he's going to run really fast. That's why they're here now.
Amir is going to push out BB as wide receiver 4 probably.
Yep.
And then
WAP.
And yeah. And
Blake
I think
Prohl, one of the two.
One of those guys is probably going to push BB all the way off the roster. Yeah. Otherwise, those guys are going to get practice squad and possibly taken. And then, the D-backs we went from really weak to having good depth. Harrison Hand looked good at safety, so Woods might get split reps with him.
Chris Boyd has been getting a lot of advice from... I know you're not a huge fan of Chris Boyd, but he's getting a ton of advice
I'm a big fan of Chris Boyd. I loved him as a pick. It's play-wise that I'm not a fan of. His play has been terrible. Yeah. So keep him at corner 5 until he's starts
getting a lot of advice. So.
Yeah. But yeah, depth chart came out. That was the big news. Nothing really outside of that.
All our kickers made their kicks yesterday too.
Yeah, both of them. One of our kickers has hitting 100% so far throughout camp.
It's not the one. It's got to be Riley Patterson.
Patterson, yep. Patterson's hitting 100% of his kicks so far in camp.
The other guy missed one from 48 or something.
Yeah, but Patterson's at 100%, so probably is the leader right now for making the kicker spot, and that's better than Bailey did in practice and in game. Heck, Gotskowski missed an extra point last year. Anything can happen with kickers nowadays.
Yeah, Tucker.
But Tucker missed his first one last year too.
Tucker's Tucker.
It is. Koo, Butker, Tucker.
Yeah.
Those three are the big kickers, and I would love a kicker that's just that's automatic.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings, I think it's just kickers have they don't have that hard mentality.
Yeah.
Like, you need to yell at me, and Zimmer doesn't understand that. So that's it. That's local news, fun news, Marvel news, sports news. We did a little NBA, some NFL. Madden is out for early access for people, so if you're interested in that, go watch it. There's streams, there's YouTube, there's people like Your Boy Pizza, KKS. Feel free to watch some of those guys. They're doing stuff already. If you're interested in seeing that, I don't have that access, so you won't see me doing that. Other than that, that's all I got for you.
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote. But yeah, we'll see you in episode 9. We appreciate you guys for watching.
It's going to be a little different. We're going to do the online thing.
Yep, Joe won't be here next week, so we'll have to do Zoom. So it'll be a little different. The camera will be in front of me. I'll be facing the computer probably, and it'll be closer to my face. Audio is going to probably be slightly better. So, it'll be an interesting week next week, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it just the same. Outside of all of that, we just appreciate everything you do. We've had some good interaction on our podcasts. We'll try to make sure to keep bringing you what you want to see so that we can keep those. We gained another subscriber. I saw that today. We gained a new one. So to keep that going, we'll just keep letting us know what you want. Like I said in the beginning, comment, tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you are sick of us saying. Stop talking about this, blah, blah, blah. And make sure to like, comment, especially like it if you want to see if this is overall what you want to see. And if you aren't subscribed already, definitely subscribe. It doesn't hurt, and it's really only one video a week. So I'm not flooding your feed.
Right.
And then follow on Twitter at Glacier Gamble if you want to get updated or just see some of the funny stuff that we tweet.
Yeah, we retweet sports news. We retweet. We comment on Marvel stuff, on DC stuff.
I've replied to some creators, like other YouTube creators, so if you're interested in seeing some other like smaller channels, some bigger channels, you'll see that interaction. There's been a lot of gaming videos, including one that was uploaded today, and streaming has been very consistent, basically every night. So check that out on Twitch. It's at Glacier. It's just playing twitch.tv/Glacier. And there's also a Twitter gaming for that, which is twitter.com/GlacierGaming. And and the YouTube channel for that is just Glacier Gaming. There's been League of Legends, there's been Minecraft, and there'll be even more games in the future. Getting a capture card, so Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl will be coming when that comes out. Lots of fun stuff on the way. Make sure, like we said, please comment, let us know. Like, that's the big thing. Like, if you're not gonna like or subscribe, please comment to let us know what you would like to see or what you think, because your opinion matters. Like, we're not doing this to just tell you what we think. We want to hear your opinion too.
Whether we're wrong or not.
Whether we're wrong or not. So far, we've proven to be wrong multiple times.
Never.
Other than that, GG.
GG. It's motorboat the mic.